Hello friends, my name is Letty and welcome back to my channel. Now, if you're watching this in the right order, this is part 2 of my bookshelf tour. I accidentally hit the wrong button as I was moving. The one thing I told myself not to do, I accidentally did, of course. So unfortunately, instead of this being one whole video, it's going to be split into 2, which maybe that will be better for like processing time for the video, like being uploaded and everything. Anyway, if you didn't watch the first one, please go and watch the video I posted before this, and this will be all the books up until this point. My bookshelf tour, all the books I'm keeping. I have a couple bookshelves as well as piles all over the house, so I'm like about halfway through, maybe a little bit more than halfway through. So we'll continue on with this next shelf here. Over here I have a little collection of some Shakespeare. We have Macbeth, Romeo and Juliet, Antony and Cleopatra, and then I also have Les Miserables as well as Phantom of the Opera. Phantom of the Opera we also read for a book club, and I believe that was for also, I think that was for, was it Reading Riley? Or the other one. Well, regardless, it'll be linked. It's the same one as one of the other books. So I'll link all the book clubs that I'm mentioning and all the channels of all the booktubers I'm mentioning, because they're some of my favorites. So I definitely would recommend you check them out if you're not familiar with them. And then, as mentioned in my unhauling video, The Labyrinth, of course, I wasn't unhauling it, but because I was wearing a shirt from The Labyrinth, from it's like a scene from The Labyrinth, I thought I would shout out that book. So there it is back on the shelf. And then we have The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea. I did enjoy this. I really like fairy tale and folklore and mythology retellings, and I thought it was whimsical and fun. And I think it's a really beautiful cover, so that's why I'm going to display it there. And then down here we have Lock Every Door. That is not my book of the month copy. I actually bought that used, and that was back before I even realized what book of the month was. And I bought it, I didn't even realize. And then now I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that's what it is. I don't know why I didn't realize that, but now I know. So anyway, I just bought that used. I didn't actually get it from the service, although I do have a subscription, and I do have quite a few books from there. And I'll go ahead and link my referral link in the description as well, because you can get brand new hardcover, like new releases, for about half price. And you can also get add-ons pretty cheap as well. So I highly recommend checking them out. You can choose between it's either 5 to 7 books a month. It depends on your level. Like you have a few different levels depending on how many boxes you've bought. But anyway, and then the last book on the bottom there, The First Detective, and that's a nonfiction about, is it Viroko? And he's the first detective. It's a story about him. And then one of my all-time favorites, Piranesi. Oh my goodness, my love, Piranesi. I love stories about labyrinths and houses and weird residences and weird hallways and doorways and passages and just anything like that. And this is just such a beautiful book, and I cannot wait to reread it. And I need to read. I annotated just a few things actually. I'll probably annotate more on the second time around. I haven't read her other book yet, but that is on my master TBR, and I would like to read it this year. And then underneath that, I have a really beautiful copy of Moby Dick. I wanted to pull it out just to show you. I actually got this on Mercari for $7, so pretty good deal. Well, I had to pay $7 in shipping because it's quite heavy. But look at that beautiful foiling, and then you have the edges here, the ribbon bookmark. It has kind of like a texturized the cover pages here, And then it also has, oh, come on. It also has a lot of illustrations. Some are color, some are not. But it does have quite a few illustrations in there as well. So this is like a nice, like coffee table edition. It has really big print as well. I mean, they're big pages, so I would hope so. And then the last few books over here on this shelf, The Stationery Shop, that is a really beautiful story. One of my favorites. I don't usually read. Well, I guess it's like it's a historical fiction, but it does have quite a bit of like a romance plot to it, but it's more so like an innocent one, and it has more to do with a coming of age story during the political upheaval in Iran. And so it just had a lot more elements to it than that. I mean, it made it really interesting, and it was actually really sad. In this book, I did some tandem reading as well, because in it Rumi is referenced quite a bit, and I happen to have some Rumi poetry, so I counted it out, and so I would read a chapter of the book, and then so many pages of the poetry, chapter of the book, so many pages of poetry. So then by the time I was done with the book, I had also read all the poetry. So that was a really fun thing to do. And then these other books here, The Mangrove Coast. This one I found at, I think it was a library bookstore for like a couple bucks, and it's set in Florida, and I love anything set in the southern US. And I remember looking at the like the synopsis and really being interested in it, and I started to read a little bit of it recently, and I did like it, so I will continue on with trying that out when I can get a chance. And then we have the Maidens here, who also wrote The Silent Patient. I have not read this one yet, though. The DaVinci Code and The Lost Symbol by Dan Brown. I know he's not like the best writer and all that, but he still writes fun adventure stories. It's kind of like, I don't know, like Indiana Jones, they're going on an adventure and there's like a little mystery and a puzzle involved. I don't know. I just think it's a fun, quick read. And sometimes you just need that, And then last one on the bottom, The First Word, and this is about language and how the word would come about. And this is really an interesting read. I read this years and years ago, so I do need to reread that. Okay, next shelf. How cute. That's a little sloth that my sister gave me, and then I just added the little leopard ears to it. Okay, so first up, speaking of Rumi poetry, you can hear my knees snap or crack. That's really great. This one, Friendship Poems of Rumi. And there's two other ones in this kind of edition. There's a spiritual one, which is a green, like a main green color, and then the love one, which is a red color. So I would love to get those two. I think those would look really pretty next to each other. So over here I have a couple stacks of mostly, I think they're historical fiction. So first up here we have Pachinko. I am about halfway through that. I got halfway through it and I was just not interested in what was happening. Like, I found myself not really caring what was happening, and it kind of took halfway into the book to even get to a pachinko parlor, and like they had been talking about it before then, but they finally got to like, I'm like, wait, it took like half of the book to like finally get here, and by that point I just lost interest, and I had other books come in that I was really interested in reading, and so I just never got back to picking that back up. I may or may not, we'll see. I mean, I heard it is a good book and it's objectively a good book, but I don't know if it's for me. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. And then I have Love in Ruin, Oracle Bones, a couple of those. Those ones I'm not really that familiar with. I just found those at either Little Free Libraries or like library bookstores. And if it's only $1, $2, or $3 and I read the synopsis and it looks interesting enough, I just grab it because sometimes it's not always there when you come back. And sometimes I'll learn about a book in between that time and I'll be like, oh, that's right, I just saw that book over there at the library bookstore. You know, it may or may not be there when I go back. So if it looks interesting enough, then I'll grab it. And then if I end up not liking it, then I can just donate it to a little free library or sell it at the used bookstore. You know, it's like not that big of a deal. I would rather have the chance of having it. And I found a really good books that way, so I'm glad that I do that. And then we have 1,000 Splendid Suns. And then we have a few more historical fiction. Starting at the top there, we have The Septembers of Shiraz, and then Beautiful Ruins, and then Cher-Ami, and Leading Men, and then Middlemarch. Middlemarch. I can't believe I found this at a library bookstore. So $2 for this. And this has been on my master TBR. I know a lot of people probably don't read that unless it's for like school or something. So I don't know, maybe I'll be in the mood to read it. But I couldn't pass up the opportunity to buy something like that for such a good deal. Okay, and this is my first little nightstand area. Okay, so down here, just a couple hardbacks. We have Hunters in the Dark. The top one here, I think I got that like at a Dollar Tree or something, and it was a pretty cool spine. I like the design here. And the synopsis sounded interesting enough to me at the time, and I think I have also read a little bit of that just to test it, and it seemed interesting. So I will eventually get around to reading that. It's just not one that you really ever like hear about or see. You know, there's so many books that it's like sometimes we tend to hear the same ones over and over and over again, and for good reason, quite frequently. But then I'm always afraid that, you know, there's so many books that aren't being talked about. So I always like to venture out and try something that, you know, we haven't heard other people talk about. And then the next little pile here, we have Gather the Fortunes. Now, this says on it that's a Crescent City novel, so I'm assuming that it's like fanfic of Sarah J. Maas. That's what I'm assuming. I'm not 100% sure though, because it doesn't reference anything on the book itself, but I'm just guessing, so I don't know. We'll see. And then next up we have Demon Copperhead, and then The Goldfinch. And then I have a little bit of my manga here, Spy Family, volumes 1 through 5. Again, I'm on volume 6, and looking forward to collecting those and continuing on with the series. Definitely one of my favorites. And then Uzumaki, and I believe this is 3 volumes in one. Oh no. It's the bind up edition. And this is a really cool Japanese body horror manga. And it's a really different story because the antagonist is not your typical villain. It is a spiral, a shape, and look how cool that is. I just think that's really cool. And there's some really interesting things that it does to people, like it possesses them, it makes them act crazy, it takes over whole towns. Highly recommend, highly recommend. And then the other manga that I'm reading is Monster. And this is a volume 1. Yeah, I thought this was 2 in 1, but anyway, this is the perfect edition. And I have read this one, and I have up to 2, but I have not read that one, and it goes up to volumes 9, so I do need to collect the rest of those as well. Okay, and my other nightstand, little pile of books area. So starting under here, I have a few Book of the Month books. Half Sick of Shadows. Oh. Now this one I actually did not get through my subscription. I got this at a library bookstore for a few bucks. So it's a Camelot retelling, it looks like. So I look forward to checking that out. The next two I have read. I've read The Adventures of Amina El-Sarafi and Long Bright River. I love a seafaring adventure, so I did enjoy this. I wish it had more sea in it though, and like more sea creatures. So we'll see what the next two books have. This is the first in a trilogy, and this just came out, so it'll probably be a